Hey guys, what's up? It's Ripe again. In today's video, a Karen CEO fired my old disabled coworker named Jim. Unbeknownst to Karen, this guy was one of the most important employees and the company ended up getting ruined by Karen's incompetence. Here is what happened. Let's dive right into the story. I used to work at a biotech company as a biochemical engineer. We had this one guy working there who, for confidentiality reasons, I'm just gonna call him Jim. Now, Jim was like a genius and everybody working there at the time knew and respected him. He was about 70 years old and still working strong despite being confined to a wheelchair. He pretty much single-handedly created a ton of the machines we use on a daily basis. He is a little bit socially awkward, but everybody at the company knows and loves him. That all changed when our CEO retired and a new woman entered the scene. I'm gonna call her Karen, and if you don't understand why, you will in a couple of minutes. I know that's a pretty male-dominated field, so any woman in power needs to come in with a lot of authority to prove herself. I've seen it done before the right way and the wrong way, and Karen was definitely doing it the wrong way. She came in thinking she had to show off how much power she had by changing things that were working fine. The entire place was in chaos for about 2 weeks because of her, and getting work done ranged from hard to impossible. She also felt like she needed to prove something as being the boss because she targeted poor old Jim. Nobody knew what her problem was with him, but we all heard her one day ream him out badly. Karen, I see you just sitting there all day staring at papers. You're not doing a damn thing. Just because you're old and in a wheelchair, you think you have the right to do anything you want. Well, that might have went over fine with the old CEO, but things are different around here now. There was a pause and I couldn't hear Jim's side of the conversation because he is soft-spoken and this was behind a door. I did hear Karen after another minute or so screaming again. Karen, you think that I don't know how to run my own company? I don't give two damns about your contract. I don't know how an old crippled man managed to stay in the industry for so long, but nowadays we use something called technology. You look like you've never even seen a computer screen in your life. I want you out of here by the end of the day, and if you come back, I'll make sure security has you arrested. I have no idea what the hell crawled up Karen's rear, but she just fired good old Jim. Arguably one of the most important people in the entire company, as well as insulted him. If she had anybody liking her before that point, it was gone the minute Jim packed up his things and left. What I did not know until a few days later was, Karen really should have looked over his contract because in firing Jim, she had just started the downfall of the entire company. I mentioned before that Jim basically invented most of the things around here, some of which are not used anywhere else, and because of contracts and confidentiality, I'm too worried to give an example. When he created these things, he filed the patents himself, meaning these patents were in his name and not the company. His contract had a clause that while he worked for the company, his patents could only be used for this company. However, when he chose to retire, he would sign the rights to the patents over. However, with the way he was fired, all of the patents had to go with him. And we did not pay for their use, and he was too angry to just let it slide. So all of the things we were using that he had invented had to be removed, and all of the progress we were making on projects was just gone. None of us were upset, and all on Jim's side except for Karen. She did not understand why the hell all of the stuff was gone and projects had to be stopped. When she got told that Jim owned all of that, she knew that she made a mistake. I heard that she tried to send him gift baskets or offer him his job back with a raise. He refused all of it because he had something planned that was gonna make sure Karen lost everything. Actually, two things, because he also had a wrongful termination lawsuit filed against Karen because the entire office could hear her insulting him based on age and disability. Two things that are illegal to fire somebody because of, especially if they are under a contract. The other thing he did was to go to our main competitors and got hired right away. They knew what they were gonna get with him and hired him basically just to get a hold of his patents and use them. While our company was halted, the competition was thriving with the new stuff and accomplishing the things we were meant to be doing and would have if Karen had just left Jim alone. Despite being the CEO, she was getting destroyed by the board of directors and they wanted to find some way to get her out because of all the damage she had done. I did not give a real scale for anything yet because I wanted to make it a little more dramatic. So we are talking about financial company losses in the millions, all connected to her firing Jim because she had something to prove or just hated old disabled people. The company was sinking fast and they lost more money in court when they were found of wrongfully terminating Jim. Everybody working here knew that it was only a matter of time, and people who were not under contract and could quit did so. I was on that list and managed to get out of that job before I was not gonna have one anymore. I don't know what recourse the workers under contract that wanted to leave could do or even did, I just know what happened overall with Karen and then the company. With all of the pressure and hate, she had to step down from the CEO position of the company after only being there for 3 months. It only took 3 months for her to turn a thriving company who was close to being at the top of the field into a dumpster fire that had people running away because we knew bankruptcy was on the horizon. Meanwhile, the company Jim was at was doing amazing with his patents and started hiring more people. Some went there, but I needed to just get away from all that drama. I got a job in a lab that was a lot less stressful, and I'm still working there to this day. I do sometimes think about Jim and how just one man was the difference between a company being amazing and falling apart. I don't think I will ever have that kind of influence in my lifetime, but I can imagine it feels pretty good. And yeah, Ripe Stars, honestly, I kind of feel bad for all the employees in that company since they no longer have a job. However, then again, Karen absolutely deserved that, and maybe, just maybe, the company will be thriving again in the future after Karen is gone. But then again, maybe that is a lesson for some people in charge, even if the company shuts down, that you should not hire Karens as CEOs. Anyway, if you have watched until here, please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Thank you so much. The next one is an XXL really good Am I the A-hole story. Am I the a-hole for leaving my wife alone? So my wife, female 43, and I, male 47, have a daughter, female 21, who goes to college out of state. We will call my wife Meg and my daughter Jessie. Jess is in her junior year of college. Over the summer she was employed by her university and was able to stay in the dorms. After summer she was moving out of the dorms and into her own apartment off campus. Meg and I live in the PNW, which I guess stands for Pacific Northwest, and Jess goes to school on the East Coast. We usually go to visit Jess a couple of times throughout the semester, typically parents' weekend and move-out day. She also comes home during the holidays. Let me start by saying that traveling with my wife is not a great experience. I'm very type A. I like to have everything organized and make sure that we get where we need to be early, especially when traveling. My wife is the opposite, very go with the flow, and we will get there when we get there. I do my best to meet in the middle, but not when traveling by plane. Last year during Parents' Weekend, Meg and I were going to fly out to see Jess. Our flight was at 10 AM, our airport is not huge, but not a tiny airport either. I told my wife that we needed to be at the airport 90 minutes early, and we live about 30 minutes away for the airport. This being said, I wanted to leave at the very least by 8, since we would also need to park and walk a bit. I of course got up at 6 to make sure everything was ready and accounted for. My wife does not like to get up early. It took me attempting to wake her up 5 times before she eventually got up at 7:40 and then wanted to make coffee, shower and eat a bowl of cereal. Let's just say that we didn't leave the house until 9. It ended up being busier at the airport than normal, likely due to many colleges having Parents' Weekend, and it took so long to get through security that we missed our flight. Rightly so, the airline refused to refund our ticket. We were able to get new tickets, but not until the next day, and we missed Friday afternoon and Saturday morning with our daughter. Jess was disappointed to say the least. Fast forward to now, we were flying down for a long weekend to help her move. So we take one flight from our town to a bigger town nearby and then fly from there to my daughter's college town. Again, it was a long morning of me pushing my wife, getting her to move along. Due to the last airport mishap, I wanted to make sure I told her we needed to leave extra early as to not miss the flight again. We got there on time with a bit of time to spare and my wife was annoyed. Kept going on about how now we just have to sit and wait for 45 minutes for them to start boarding. We took our first flight and landed in the connecting city at a much larger airport. We only had about a 1-hour layover. We got off the plane at 9:15 and our next plane started boarding at 9:40. We had to take multiple rails to get from where we landed to our terminal. We got to our terminal and had about 15 minutes until our plane was set to board. My wife tells me that she wants to get coffee. There was a little market next to our terminal that sold hot food and coffee. I asked if she wanted me to go grab it for her, but she said, "No, I want Starbucks." Well, Starbucks was a rail ride away and a little bit of a walk. I told her we couldn't do that and we didn't have enough time. She stated that we had enough time and if I would not go with her, she would go by herself. I tried to discourage her, but she was determined. She walked away at a brisk pace for her and said that she would be back in time. 15 minutes went by and she was nowhere to be seen. They started calling the boarding groups. I called my wife hoping she was nearby. She didn't even answer. They called a few groups and then called ours. In a panic, I called my wife again 3 times and finally on the last call she answered and said that she was on her way. It was a long line and she had to wait a bit. I told her they were almost done with boarding and she needed to hurry up. I waited by the gate, but the attendant said they would need to shut the gate in 2 minutes. I waited and waited, but she didn't show up. The attendant asked if I wanted to board, otherwise she was closing the gate. I tried to plead with her to wait a couple of minutes, but she insisted that she couldn't do that. So I boarded the plane. A few minutes later my wife calls me, saying the attendant won't let her on. They had already removed the boarding ramp at that point. She told me I needed to tell them to let me off the plane to be with her, and I said no. It's not fair to do this again to Jess, and I said I told you we didn't have time, but you decided to go anyways. I told her to go purchase a new ticket for the next flight and I would see her when she arrives. She got to Jess' school and seemed unbothered by the whole situation, did not even really talk about it. I thought maybe she realized it was her fault and just wanted to drop it. Boy, was I wrong. We are now home and she has not talked to me since the trip over a week ago and is insisting that I'm an a-hole. So, am I the a-hole? And yeah, Ripe Stars, let me know what you think about this in the comments. In my opinion, OP is 100% not the a-hole. Honestly, his wife does not seem very mature and she doesn't take it very seriously to visit her daughter, which I don't really understand. Also, what kind of baffles me, I thought that flying in the United States is not that cheap. It looks like both OP and his wife are not really bothered by the fact that they're just wasting airline tickets by not taking the flights and just buying new tickets like it's nothing. That all seems to be a super big waste of money in my opinion. Anyway, a user in the comments said, I stopped being the caretaker for my partner after the first time we missed a flight. I told him, nope, never again. Next 2 flights he missed and man, he complained. Explained again that he's a damn adult and has choices to make. The 3rd time he missed a 10-day cruise, he has never been late again. He is pissed about it but listens to me and gets up and ready and out the door on time. Oh, and by the way, not the a-hole. Comment number 2, not the a-hole, you need to make a line in the sand. Sit down and tell your wife that you love her and you cherish her, but the way she disrespects your desire to be punctual is just too much for you. Tell her that from now on, you are going to make separate arrangements when traveling. You're not responsible for waking her up. You're not responsible for getting her out the door. She is an adult and she can do what she wants. The first time she completely misses an event, I suspect things will change. You have been accommodating her to such a high degree that she can act like an infant. Update to the story, and let me tell you guys, we have a lot of updates. It goes like this. Wow, I know a lot of people say this, but I really did not think this would get as big as it did. For those who are outside of the US, PNW is Pacific Northwest. As far as how she acts in other situations, she generally does not have any issues. She is never one to be late to work or anything like that, she just seems like travel is her poor area, and I never noticed things like this until we started traveling often to see our daughter. This is why I never considered ADHD, she really shows no other signs of this. I saw posts implying that my wife might have an addiction of some sort. I'm not sure how that would line up, but I don't see that being a possibility. I didn't think the following information was important, but my daughter made a comment and so did a friend that I discussed this with, so I thought maybe I would mention it here. Jess is not Meg's daughter. I was married one before and my wife unfortunately passed away due to complications during Jess's birth. I remarried Meg when my daughter was 6 and my daughter made a comment that Meg does not like/want to come see and help her and that's why she's always running late. But I've offered to go alone and Meg was always very against that idea, so I wouldn't think that's the case. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I gotta say, this is not looking good for the wife so far. It really all points to the possible cause that Meg does not really seem to care that much about Jess and that's why she's always running late. But I hope to be proven wrong in the next updates. Anyway, update number 2, I cannot say that Meg and Jess have had the easiest relationship. Meg always wanted to have another kid, but we were unable to conceive. She did make comments that she wanted children of her own and that caused a little riff in our relationship at the time because I wanted her to see Jess as her daughter. But they really never had the typical mother-daughter relationship. It was always very much pushed that Jess was my daughter. Meg did make comments about being excited to have an empty nest, but I assumed this was just because we would have more room. Jess is a great kid and really never says anything bad about anyone, but she had made comments before stating that she thinks Meg is jealous of her, but this never made sense to me. She has also told me that she doesn't want Meg to come to her school for Parents' Weekend, as she would rather spend it just with me or wait for Father's Weekend. However, Meg always says she wants to go, and I've never gone without her. This being said, I've never seen any negativity directed at Jess from Meg or resentment. Maybe I'm missing something. Update number 3 to the story. Hi everyone, thanks again for all the advice. So my wife finally started talking to me again. When she did, I told her that I wanted to have a conversation about the situation, but I wanted to give it a couple of days for emotions to settle down. Some of the comments here gave me a great idea and I wanted to see what she thought about it. For all future trips I will have my tickets and she will have hers. I typically drive to the airport and leave my car in one of the pay lots, so I would drive myself and she could Uber. She will have all the freedom she wants to do what she wants to do, but it's up to her to arrive on time and board the plane. I let her know that it was starting to feel like I needed to keep track of both of us, and I phrased it in a way to make it sound like I didn't want to be controlling over her and let her manage her own time. She was not happy with this, but she reluctantly agreed. Now to get to the bigger issue that I didn't realize we had until reading the comments of this post. Call me oblivious, but I really never thought that there was any issue between Meg and Jess. After talking to my wife, she would not admit to any issues and stated that she would never intentionally delay a flight so that we could not see our daughter, and she acted offended that I would ask such a thing. If that was her actual purpose, I don't think I would be able to prove it, but it will be at the forefront of my mind in the future. After talking to Meg and Jess, we decided on the following. Meg and I will be visiting Jess on Parents' Weekend. However, I will be attending Father's Weekend from now on, and I will be attending by myself to get some alone time with Jess. Jess seemed very excited, and surprisingly, Meg did not seem to have an issue with that at this time. Thanks again to everyone who took the time to read and give me advice. I really appreciate everything, and I hope these steps can work towards a resolution for the issues. And the next one is titled, Taught a Coworker a Lesson in Revenge. This takes place in the early 2000s. I worked for a very large retail store. I like to learn how to run each department and never turned down a new opportunity to learn something new. One day a manager asks me if I want to learn how to run the layaway department. I say yes and my training began. The first 10 minutes I am in the department, the coworker training me says, "You want to learn how to deal with difficult customers." I say, why not? He leads me to the back room and climbs a 20-feet ladder with a box in hand. The box contained a customer's items recently put on layaway. The coworker gets to the top of the ladder and then drops the box and says that should teach them a lesson. The coworker told me this is what he calls the special treatment. I immediately think this guy is a complete moron because the customers will just return the broken items and the company will eat the costs, which in turn causes lower pay raises for employees. After 2 weeks of learning layaway, I learn candles are the most hardest items to box up. So I decide why not teach this coworker a lesson with candles. So I start putting candles on layaway, 1 candle at a time. It was pennies on the dollar putting these candles on layaway. I do this for about a month and then the coworker asks, "Why are you putting these candles on layaway? Don't you know how annoying it is to box these up and how much of my time is wasted doing this?" I reminded him of the first lesson he taught me and told him I thought he was a difficult employee. I told him he was wasting customers' time and company money by giving customers the special treatment, and then I walked away. Later that day I get asked to work in layaway. Turns out the coworker got ticked off and walked out. Summer job that led to the closure of 4 restaurants. I, 22 female, got my first job when I was 16 at a specialty restaurant with 5 locations. I worked at the busiest location. It was summer at the time, so I was working 5 days a week from 12 to 10 p.m. The restaurant is set up like Panda Express / Manchu Wok or those other Asian restaurants in food courts where the food is laid out and you pick what you want from the selection. Except it is not in a food court and has its own seating, so more like a cafeteria / IKEA setup. My job is to give/serve people their food, cashier and some minor prep. By 1 PM all the cooks have left and I am left with a dishwasher/busboy until closing. 3 weeks have passed and I have not gotten paid anything. Turns out the owner, whom I've met a couple of times, is spending all her revenue in the casino and a lot of staff are not getting paid. Some employees have worked here for years and have over $5,000 of unpaid work. I talked to the owner and she said I can take my daily income from the cash register, cash, no tax, after I do all my closing as long as I write everything down. I did not care at this time as long as I was getting paid, but I didn't know much about the law either since it was my first job. But I did provide them my SIN/SSN, so I was hired legally to my knowledge. The manager that hired me never mentioned cash payments when she hired me. I was getting my pay from the till for about a week until one of my coworkers found out. Obviously, she got jealous and told everyone. Since these people have thousands of unpaid work, they felt like it was unfair that I was getting paid and they were not. At this time the owner was out of country, so I stopped taking my pay from the till to avoid getting in conflict with my coworkers. I mean, the owner will pay me eventually, right? I was young, naive and did not know better. During one of my shifts a delivery came in and they wanted to get paid on the spot. I did not have cash on the till and I could not get a hold of my coworkers to deal with the situation, so the delivery guy eventually left with all the products. That night, the owner's husband gave me a call and he was furious that we did not get the delivery since we needed it for tomorrow because we are low on products. He dropped by to leave cash for the delivery and made me wait until 12 midnight for the delivery to come, unpaid. I was left by myself in the restaurant and I was crying. It was a very stressful situation for me and working here led me to smoke cigarettes. I don't smoke anymore. This was my breaking point. I wanted to quit, but I was afraid that I would not get all my hard-earned money. The job is easy, but all the coworker drama and the crappy treatment of the owners got to me. I kept working in this location until the end of summer with over $3,000 of unpaid work, not adjusted with overtime and holiday pay. I did eventually get to talk to the owner on the phone and all I got was, "It is what it is." I did not show up for work on the last day of summer. After I did not show up, I filed a claim with the Department of Labor/Ministry of Labor. When school started, the manager from their other location asked me to come work for her on weekends. Of course I said no, but eventually agreed when she said that I will be paid after my shift with cash. The owner never came here to take the revenue for her gambling and she is still out of the country, so I did get paid after my shift. Everyone that worked here was a lot nicer too, since everyone was getting paid. I asked my unemployed friends to drop off their resumes. The owner did not know that I was friends with these people and she eventually hired one of my friends as a dishwasher to work with me. The manager leaves early on weekends and it is just me and my friend in the restaurant, so I would give out food to my friends, customers that I know and family for free. Not my food cost, so I did not give a damn. I know it's an a-hole move, but keep in mind the $3,000 that they still owe me. Everyone that worked here knows all the bullcrap that is happening. Business has always been doing great to the point that the owner was able to have 5 locations. Everyone was getting paid on time and were given bonuses during the first few years of the business until the owner started going to the casino. Her attitude changed and stopped taking care of the business. She would even get mad at the employees for paying the bills instead of keeping the cash for her gambling. We've had times that our electricity got cut off and could not operate as a restaurant. Producers/suppliers are also refusing to deliver products unless we paid right away. They are not getting paid on time as well. The owner mainly ever goes to the restaurant locations to take cash out of his pocket to pay for the restaurant expenses. From what I've heard, their marriage went down the sewage since the wife started gambling and coming home from the casino without her car. There were also rumors that the husband cheated that led to the wife's gambling problems. I believed all the rumors since it all made sense at the time, but no confirmation until now. I also found out that one of their locations had to close down because they did not pay the lease. They are now left with 4. We are the only location, second location I'm working at, where this staff gets paid on time. Except for the manager who also has unpaid wages from years before and my $3,000 from summer. Everyone else here is new and are getting paid on time. 2 weeks have passed since I worked part-time at the other location. I started getting calls from the labor department about my claim. I told them everything, staff not getting paid or the owner is paying cash, plus all the crappy treatment that I did not mention above. Of course, the government does not like it when we don't pay our taxes. I kept a record of my hours in my notebook. I also had text messages from my coworkers about the working conditions of this place. I kept working here while my claim was being processed and while the owner is out of the country. Eventually, they got the letter a couple of days after the owner came back and she was enraged.
How do you have the audacity to work here after you file a claim against us?
She was not aware that I didn't show up for my shift when I was working at the first location and was hired by the manager in the current location. So I got fired. I went on with school and eventually got paid $5,000 plus for my unpaid hours and the trouble. The labor department gave them crap as well for not paying a minor. It seemed like they were taking advantage. That was basically my first paycheck, quite a lot of money for a 16-year-old. I started working at a food court elsewhere, totally legal, it's a franchise. One day I was approached by one of the cooks at the first location who recognized me. They all knew what I did and that I got paid, and he wanted to know how to file a claim. I told him everything, what he needs to do and all the proof/evidence that he can provide. I also told him that whoever files a claim will get paid, and I encouraged him to tell everyone. 2 months later, my friend that knew about the situation started tagging me on an article posted on Facebook about the restaurant. Over 4 people have filed for a claim and the owner is forced to pay over $50,000+ for unpaid wages, overtime and interest plus $2,500 plus administrative fees. I later on found out that they got audited and more people started filing for claims. A lot of people that worked there before and is still owed their wages also filed for a claim. A food inspection in one of the other locations uncovered several serious health and sanitation infractions. All 4 of their locations eventually shut down. I know it is not an intentional revenge and the restaurant could have closed down anytime due to their debt, although my friends still joke about it to this day that I added fuel/spark to the fire/kindle that led to the closure of all their remaining locations. I'm just glad I got my hard-earned money. And with this, we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please check out my endless playlist where you can find thousands of hours of content. In addition, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. Thank you so much in advance, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.